Sean Diddy Combs' trafficking trial is now set to begin next year, and prosecutors are hinting that they could potentially bring new charges.
That's basic law. It's been basic law in this country.
So we made a bail appeal to Judge Carter. It did not go our way. The fight continues. We're not giving up by a long shot. I told Mr. Combs I'm going to try and get his case to trial as quickly as possible.
Everyone's talking about what went down recently as Diddy's lawyers clashed with the judge, desperately fighting for his release from a prison which is also called Hell on Earth. Now, as Diddy endures brutal conditions and fears for his life, one question remains. Why is he being tortured in prison? And why his lawyer is so desperate to get him out? Does he know something shady about the other media figures like Jay-Z or Beyonce? Stick with me as I'm about to cover the entire argument inside the court that happened between the judge and his lawyer.
It's important. I think it's important for people to be heard, have their chance to get the power back. Because sexual abuse, sexual assault is about one thing: taking power, humiliating, demeaning a person and a victim. It has nothing to do with it. And so I think it's important. I think it's important to get the word out. I think it's important for men to feel, hey, look, I can come out and be heard just like a woman could.
So for those who don't know yet, Diddy's in hot water again. We knew him for throwing big parties and making huge deals, but now he's been arrested. And it's a big deal because the charges are pretty serious and it's got everyone watching. Now, Diddy's lawyer, Mark, is really pushing to get him out on bail. He's telling the court that the jail Diddy's in, the Metropolitan Detention Center, is really tough. And it's not a good place for someone like him. Mark's saying Diddy could be in danger there because both other inmates might try to mess with him to get some attention. And because the rough conditions could really mess with his mental health. He's trying to show that Diddy's in real danger, not just from being in jail, but also from people who might target him. The conditions are really hard. Remember what the former warden said about this place?
It is. It's austere, it's strict, it's impersonal, it's cold, and it is a very tough place to be detained.
Anyway, Mark also highlighted the allegations of neglect and abuse within the MDC. Former inmates and advocacy groups have long criticized the facility for its overcrowding, unsanitary conditions, and lack of adequate medical care. Diddy's lawyer insisted that such an environment is not just punitive, but a violation of basic human rights. He further stressed that Diddy, as a pretrial detainee, has not been convicted of any crime and should not be subjected to conditions that could irreparably harm him physically and mentally. The place is literally surrounded by the police 24/7, and since the place is so secure, the news media can only report from the outside of the main gates. That's why it's hard for the media to know about Diddy's situation inside the prison.
We're outside the MDC Brooklyn. This is the Metropolitan Detention Center in Brooklyn, and the side entrance where you can see there is a significant gate held by the U.S. Department of Justice Federal Bureau of Prisons as we look up at this building.
Despite all the strong arguments from Diddy's lawyer, the judge won't budge on bail. The charges are too serious, and the ongoing investigations are too important to let him go, even for a little while. The judge said letting Diddy out could mess with the case, especially because it's so high profile and involves sensitive evidence. It's pretty clear the courtroom has turned into a real battleground, with Diddy's lawyer fighting hard for his rights and the judge sticking strictly to the law.
The judge has denied bail for Sean Diddy Combs. Of course, this was the hip-hop mogul's latest bid for freedom as he remains in federal jail for his racketeering and trafficking case. The producer and rapper has pleaded not guilty to racketeering, conspiracy, trafficking, and prostitution charges.
The courtroom was charged with tension as Mark made an impassioned plea for Diddy. You could feel his frustration, especially when he talked about the risks Diddy was facing in the tough jail. Mark was determined to get bail, showing how committed he was to Diddy and the pressure he was under. Even with the judge saying no over and over, Mark kept pushing, urging the court to think about what it meant to keep Diddy locked up like this.
He's going to plead not guilty, obviously. He's going to fight this with all of his energy and all of his might and the full confidence of his lawyers. And I expect a long battle with a good result for Mr. Combs.
Do you think he'll be released?
I'm going to fight like hell to get him released, and he should be released with all that he's done and coming here voluntarily.
The whole legal fight turned into a spectacle that caught the public's eye. Diddy's fans and social justice supporters rallied around him, flooding social media with #JusticeForDiddy, highlighting the unfairness they saw in his situation. They argued that being rich and famous shouldn't make Diddy a target for tougher treatment. On the flip side, critics suggested that his status might get him special treatment that others wouldn't get, sparking sparking even more debate. Legal experts have been all over Diddy's case, throwing in their 2 cents. Some are on Mark's side, arguing that just because Diddy's a pretrial detainee, it doesn't mean he should be treated like he's already guilty. They're also quick to point out the deep-seated issues at places like the MDC, known for skimping on even the basics of care and safety. But then there are those who stand by the judge, citing the serious nature of the changes and the public's stake in the case. They worry that letting Diddy out on bail could mess with the whole judicial process. The whole ordeal has got people talking more broadly about justice and how high-profile folks are handled in the criminal justice system. For Diddy's fans, he's like a poster child for what's wrong with the system. But others see his jail time as proof that no amount of fame or money can shield you from the law. And even though Mark tried to get him out now, we can say that they have officially given up on his bail.
Diddy Combs ends his battle to get released on bail. The rapper's attorneys today filed a motion to dismiss his bail appeal. Combs was already denied bail 3 times by 3 different judges, and now that he is ending his bid.
All right, so let's talk about life in the MDC, because it's a nightmare, and the reports paint a pretty bleak picture. It's way too crowded. Imagine cells made for 1 or 2 people packed with 3 or 4. Some guys even end up sleeping on the floor. The whole place is dirty, too. Former inmates talk about disgusting bathrooms, filthy water, and this constant, lingering stench. Basics like decent food, clean water, and medical care, hard to come by. And it's not just uncomfortable, it's straight up dangerous.
There was even a congressional inquiry, but take the word of a former inmate I spoke with who goes by Esco.
It's terrible. The food is terrible. Of course, the inmates are terrible. The guards are terrible. The conditions are terrible. It's just terrible.
Is another huge problem there. Inmates scrap all the time, driven nuts by the crowding and the scarceness of everything. The guards aren't making things any better either. There are loads of stories about them getting too rough. For someone like Diddy, who everyone knows, the danger's even worse. Being famous can make you a target for someone looking to make a name for themselves or settle a score, and that's the last thing Diddy needs right now. He's really scared in there, worried about getting hurt. It's not just paranoia. Being a celebrity puts a big target on your back, in a place where violence is the usual way to sort things out. There are even whispers that he's scared of being poisoned. Considering how high profile his case is, some people are drawing parallels to Jeffrey Epstein, whose death sparked all those conspiracy theories. The fear of ending up like Epstein is only feeding Diddy's fears. It's a tough time for him, and every day there just adds to his stress. So the latest reports are worrying, showing just how much prison life is wearing Diddy down. There's talk of a meltdown, and it's clear he's not handling the stress well. Diddy, once so full of confidence and known for his dynamic personality, seems to have lost his spark. At a recent court appearance, people were shocked by his appearance. He's lost a lot of weight and looks worn out, and signs of aging and fatigue clear on his face. For someone who's used to luxury and being in the spotlight, this shift to the harsh realities of prison must be incredibly tough. Making things even harder is his isolation. High-profile inmates like Diddy often end up in solitary confinement, supposedly for their own protection. While it might keep him safe from threats from other inmates, solitary can mess with your mind. It's often called psychological torture for a good reason. Being all alone with no one to talk to and nothing but silence around you can really mess with your mental health. It can lead to depression, severe anxiety, and even thoughts of For Diddy, who was always out and about, mingling and making moves, this extreme isolation and the quiet of a solitary cell is probably the hardest part of it all.
As far as we know right now, he has been kept in solitary confinement, or the SHU right now, and he's been on suicide watch. How different is that experience from being in the general population?
It's much harder. If you like to be around people, you like communication, if you're an extrovert, and then suddenly you were isolated 23 hours a day on total lockdown, I'm not spinning that it's difficult. It will test the strongest mind. But he has to understand others have gone through it and emerged successfully. And what he and his lawyers have to understand is they have like a messaging problem.
Now, one of the most striking moments in Diddy's case came when his legal team made an unprecedented $50 million bail offer. That figure alone was enough to grab headlines worldwide. It wasn't just the sheer amount of money on the table, it was the symbolism behind it. For many, it was a sign of just how desperate Diddy was to escape the conditions at the Metropolitan Detention Center. His legal team argued that the money, combined with the strict monitoring conditions, would ensure his compliance and eliminate any risk of flight. However, the judge's response was as firm as it was shocking. The bail was denied, with the court citing the severity of the charges and the ongoing investigations as reasons to keep him detained. One thing that is making headlines and going viral on social media is that Diddy might have known about some shady dealings among Hollywood elites. Even if he doesn't know anything, he might be harmed by another prison inmate just for clout, because, as you know, the whole MDC is filled with gangs and thugs. The situation with Sean Diddy Combs is deeply polarizing. While some view him as a victim of a harsh system where his fame makes him vulnerable, others see him as enjoying privileges that typical inmates don't have. Amidst this, rumors have linked Jay-Z to Diddy's legal issues, adding more drama to the case. These speculations, fueled by their history as both rivals and collaborators, have intensified public scrutiny and debate. Despite no solid evidence, the mere mention of Jay-Z has sparked widespread discussion, with many digging through their past connections for clues, and debates about his possible involvement flood social media. So, what are your thoughts on this?